Hi guys, how you all doing? Hope you're all keeping safe and well. Hope you're enjoying the series of videos that I've been doing. I know there's been a little bit of a gap. I had to catch up on some work that I'll be doing for some freelance stuff I'll be doing. Stay tuned. I'll be posting up stuff as soon as it comes up. Once I've got your attention, make sure that you are subscribing to my channel. I think you can hit a logo down here or just scroll up and hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell icon for notifications. Meanwhile, also check out hashtag BrownCarGuy and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, browncarguy.com. And whilst you're at it, there's some very exclusive content. You know what? I'll tell you about that at the end of the video. Don't go anywhere. So anyway, part of these videos that I've been doing, this series of videos, and some of the ones I've been doing is with other people, loosely termed Brown Car Guy and Buddies. And I was listening back to the one I did the other day, terrific conversation I had with Noman Farouk in Canada, who runs Automotive Affairs. And it was very interesting because it kind of turned out that in a very roundabout sort of way, I maybe kind of helped him on his journey to where he is now, which was paralleling my own journey a little bit. And he's originally from Karachi, from Pakistan, and his family sort of traveled around the world. They lived in the Far East, they lived in the Middle East. Now he's, like I said, he's in Canada. But whilst he was in the Middle East, he was living in Saudi in the late 80s. And he was reading car reviews in newspapers. And in fact, that's when I actually started out writing car reviews, which was in 1989 in the Saudi Gazette in Jeddah. And so he realized, he said, well, I was reading car reviews in the newspapers at the time there. The only two new English papers were Saudi Gazette and Arab News. And I write for Saudi Gazette. And then a year later, I joined the Arab News. So he said, it must have been you. So it must have been, because there was nobody else. I like to claim that I'm the first motoring journalist in Saudi Arabia. Not in that region, but certainly in Saudi Arabia. But it was very interesting then to talk about where he went from there, and then how he started to become aware of automotive media. And one day he was sitting actually in the UK watching Top Gear on television. This must have been in the 90s sometime. And an uncle said to him, or a relative said to him, beta, what are you going to do with your life? And he said, well, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. That's a job. That's amazing. I want to do that. And understandably, the reaction that he received wasn't entirely positive and encouraging. And in fact, it was kind of sad, because the response that he actually received was, well, beta, these sort of things, they're not for the likes of you and me. You need to be thinking of something a little bit more serious. You know what? I get this till I maybe not now that I'm at this age, but as a brown person or an Asian person, and you get into some field which is, say, creative or media specifically, it always becomes very difficult. For a long time, I used to get that thing where, so beta, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I write articles. I write for newspapers and magazines and stuff like that. For a while, I wasn't even doing motoring. I was also doing other stuff as well, including community newspapers, local reporting, covering political rallies and stuff like that. I did some banking and finance as well. But it was always journalism for me. It was always writing. And every now and then you'd meet somebody, like I said, a relative or an uncle or somebody, and they say, well, or even an aunt if you like, and like, well, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a journalist and I write. And they go, oh, very nice, beta. And so when are you going to get a serious job? It was like that. It was like, what do you want me to do? It's like, well, it's a bit late to become a doctor or engineer now, which is what most of them wanted, or even a lawyer. What do you want me to do? Open a cash and carry? So wasn't my thing. That was my big problem. There's two things I loved in life, was cars and I was going to say writing, but probably more the art of communication. That's always been what I've been about. It's about the understanding of media, how media works, how communication works, all of that sort of stuff. So for me to combine these two things was ideal. I mean, that's what it was all about. And ultimately, like even now at this stage, where it's kind of hard to make a living doing this stuff, you do wonder, well, what else can I do? And I sit and I think for hours, and I was like, there's nothing else I can do. This is the only thing I know how to do, because this is what it's always been about. But it's been difficult, and that's why this whole video is themed. It's hard to be a brown car guy. Not just, we've covered the media part of it, which is hard enough, but even to be a brown car guy, because I speak to a lot of my contemporaries, if you like, people from non-Asian backgrounds, and you go, well, where does your interest come from? Even in some Asian backgrounds, but more so in non-Asian backgrounds, you go, where did your interest come from? And invariably, it comes from a dad or an uncle or somebody who was either involved in racing or in cars or in garage, or somebody in the family was into cars. Would take them to events and stuff like that. Nobody in my family was ever interested in cars. My dad was an electrical engineer. He didn't even drive until he had to, until we moved to Saudi Arabia, and he realized that was the only way to get around. And then he gave in. Basically he gave in, and he said, okay, well, if I must drive, I drive. And then, in fact, as soon as I was able to drive, he would let me do all the driving. And it was just kind of cool, because I'm talking maybe even, not going on record, but maybe even, although I am, maybe even before I got a driving license. But because he didn't like it, he didn't enjoy it, he didn't want to do it. So he was never interested. My brother still doesn't have a driving license. My sister started to drive, but she's not crazy about cars or anything like that. When I was young, I dragged the family over to motor shows, living here in the UK. We'd always go down to what was at the time the Earl's Court Motor Show, or Olympia or Earl's Court, one of them. I think it was Earl's Court. And when I was a bit older, I used to save up my pocket money and get a train ticket and go up to the Birmingham NEC, because they used to alternate with the London Motor Show and the Birmingham Motor Show. But trying to drag my family or get my family to take me to anything else, like a motor racing event or a car meet or anything like that. Well, there wasn't so many car meets back in those days, but like car shows and car events other than the motor show was really hard work. The motor show we went to because it was like a family day out, and you could get there on the tube, and it was just a bit of fun and games. You came away with goodie bags and brochures and stuff like that, but otherwise it was really hard work. But just to try and even explain my interest and passion in cars was hard. I used to collect models. I remember with my mates queuing up outside Hamleys in Regent Street in the West End to wait the arrival of the first ever Burego models of the now legendary Ferrari F40. And it was a beautiful detailed model, which I still have. Where is it? It's here somewhere. I know it's either here. Oh, there it is. In fact, it's over there. I'll put a clip in later. And so this was way back in whenever that was, 80 something, and got this model. And back at home, obviously in my bedroom, I had a shelf full of cars, full of model cars and stuff like that. And of course, this was my main piece. It was my pride and joy, and it was sort of the main feature of that shelf. And I can't remember, and I wouldn't name him even if I could remember which uncle it was, but some relative was visiting from overseas, and he was in the house, and he came into my room, and he started looking at all the pictures of cars, and he said, "Oh, you really like your cars, huh?" And I'm like, yeah, I do actually, yeah. And then he started looking at the models, and he spent a bit of time looking at the models, and I was like, oh, okay, a little bit of respect. Maybe, maybe he's into it. Maybe he's interested, Then he picks up this F40, which, gets my heart fluttering anyway. Like, don't drop it. That's, But he's looking at the F40, and he's, like, really studying it. Like, he's looking at it. And, it's a very detailed one, if you remember the Borrego model. He's studying up and down. And I go, yeah, so that's the Ferrari F40, It's a legendary machine. It's the last one to be signed off by Enzo Ferrari. It's going to be a future classic, and that's the model of that car. Beta, it's very nice, very exceptional. I mean, the detailing is very nice on this thing. I'm like, yeah, it is, isn't it? It's really, really good. I thought, finally, so it's a soulmate, somebody I can relate to. And then he turned around and he was looking at the back of it. Yeah, but Beta, where does the battery go in this? Yeah, that was that. That was that for me right there. I literally almost all but snatched it off him and put it back on the shelf, and then took him over for some tea and samosas instead. But there you go. It's always been tricky to do this kind of stuff, to get into this kind of stuff, and then to actually then make a career out of it. So big respect and appreciation to any contemporaries of mine. There aren't that many, but also a lot of people that are following in my sort of footsteps or doing these sort of things that I'm doing. And massive shout out to them. And all I can say is that I feel you, bruv. That's all I can say. It's not easy being a brown car guy. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you're following me on all of the channels as I mentioned. Just search for #BrownCarGuy, and that unique piece of content that I mentioned earlier on is available exclusively on my Patreon account, patreon.com/Shazad Sheikh. I'll put the link below. Go check it out, and your support would be much appreciated. As I've said, this is a difficult thing to do, and there's costs and stuff to it, but just watch, like, share, comment. Appreciate it. If you could do more, that would be great. Thanks so much for watching. See you again soon.